Gimme shelter. The uniform made me look like someone who worked at a place that sold hot dogs and ice cream cones. I stripped down to my boxers and slipped myself hurriedly inside the jumpsuit. Shan and Robbie gave in to their desire to conform. All teenagers really want to be exactly alike, so why wouldn't they? Shan and Robbie put on uniform jumpsuits as well. Watching Shan and Robbie take off their clothes made me realize that nylon jumpsuits were not very good at hiding erections. Saint Casimiris kept me strong. I wanted a cigarette. Shan Collins was Eden 49. Robbie Breeze became Eden 133. Put on our white caps and socks. We were an army now. There were a lot of lockers down there, enough to find suits that fit us perfectly, enough to last forever. You think this place would explode or shit if we smoked down here? I asked. Robbie said, I was wondering the same thing, Porcupine. The place did not explode. I noticed there were ashtrays built into the walls of the locker room. Everyone smoked in the 1970s, especially in Iowa. Who wouldn't smoke if you were sealed underground and the world above was going down a cosmic shithole? Walking silently over to the cool, slick floor in our brand-new McKeon Industries Scientific Labs Department white socks, we left the locker room through the only hatched doorway at the opposite end from the entry. We came into a massive auditorium with rows of cushioned seats that all faced a podium and rolling blackboards at the front of the room. It was like a lecture hall. The stage area was lit up in track lights that pointed down at the lectern, so the audience's attention would be focused on whoever might be up there telling them all the important shit they needed to know. On one of the chalkboards behind the speaker's podium, a diagram had been drawn. It looked like this. 412E, arrow. Human blood host, arrow. Larval stage, arrow. Metamorphosis, arrow. Sexual reproduction, arrow. Infestation. It was just like a biology class with polywogs. I hated biology. As far as I know, polywogs cannot destroy the world. Then again, I never paid attention in biology class unless the teacher was talking about sexual reproduction with humans. Our 9th grade biology teacher at Curtis Crane Lutheran Academy was named Mrs. Edna Fitzmaurice. She had a mustache and would not tolerate nervous giggling when she said a word like penis or vagina. Edna Fitzmaurice's main function at Curtis Crane Lutheran Academy was to make teenagers morbidly terrified of sex. History lesson. Over the course of the centuries in the history of education, although fought valiantly by endless armies of pedagogues, the attempt to frighten teenagers away from sex has proven to be a losing battle. The lecture hall had multiple sets of doorways leading out from each of its 3 curved walls. There was so much more for us to explore. The place was easily 5 times larger than the McKeon house where Shan lived, maybe bigger than that. The first door we opened took us to a type of lounge. It looked like a television set from the 1960s-era family comedy with low, straight-backed sofas perched on narrowly tapered birchwood peg legs, shag carpeting, and coffee tables shaped like kidney beans. On one of the tables was an assortment of magazines. They were perfectly unwrinkled, dustless, hardly touched. The most recent date on any of the magazines was 1971. There were framed photographs on the wall, an image of the flag of the United States planted on the surface of the moon, faces of presidents carved into Mount Rushmore, a herd of long-horned cattle that apparently were Iowa cornfields. Willie Stargell swinging at home plate in the 1971 World Series, and a black and white picture of President Richard Nixon and his family taken in the White House in front of a fireplace, and a painting of President George Washington. It was everything that made America worth living in an underground cave for, while the rest of the world went entirely to shit. That was our day. You know what I mean. And there was a cigarette machine in the lounge. Discovering it had an almost religious impact on Robbie and me. Thank you, Saint Casimiris, I said. I pulled my medal out from my jumpsuit and kissed the saint. You're going to hell for that, for turning Catholic, Robbie said. Robbie pulled one of the levers on the machine. Out popped a red pack of Pall Mall cigarettes and a book of matches that advertised how you could get into art school by drawing a cute little fawn named Winky. You did not need to put money into the machine to get cigarettes out of it. It was a miracle. Robbie said, "Thank you, St. Casimir's." We sat on one of the couches and smoked. The Pall Mall cigarettes were a little stale, but they were free. I'd read somewhere that cigarette manufacturers during the 1970s also put saltpeter in their tobacco. I wondered if Americans had fewer erections during the 1970s than during other decades. Apparently, the saltpeter in my Pall Mall was not having much of an effect on my penis. I sat beside Shan and rubbed her leg with mine. The jumpsuit felt very nice. I put my hand on her neck. We kissed. I slipped my tongue into Shan's mouth. I believed Robbie was a better kisser than me. I tried to kiss Shan like Robbie would. Robbie watched us. He was not bothered at all by what I was doing with Shan. He got up from the couch and went over to the wall. Our built-in shelf surrounded an old reel-to-reel tape recorder. There was a big spool of tape that had been left threaded across the machine's playheads. Robbie pressed the power button, and the 2 level meter windows on the bottom of the machine flickered with yellow light. There were red needles that looked as fine as strands of horsehair, and they pricked up inside each window. Robbie flipped a switch. It made a soft click, and the reels jerked and spun. Music came from everywhere around us. It was a recording of the Rolling Stones album Let It Bleed. Robbie said, "Oh, hell yes." Robbie danced and smoked. He was such a great dancer. It's just like when he taught me how to dance in his room at the Del Vista Arms, so I could win Shan's attention when we were in 7th grade. I wanted to dance with Robbie, too. Robbie said, "I never want to leave Shan's silo." Mick Jagger sang "Give Me Shelter." History will show that Give Me Shelter is one of the greatest songs ever recorded. It sounded so beautiful down inside Shan's silo. Robbie danced in his jumpsuit, which he had unzipped all the way past his belly button so you could see his brightly colored, non-plaid, non-Iowa boxers. They had pictures of ice cream cones with rounded scoops of colorful ice cream melting down the diamond-patterned waffle cones in suggestive drips. Robbie always had the coolest boxers. He waved his hands around and tilted a cigarette daringly from his lips. "Oh, a storm is threatening. My very life today." I got up and danced with Robbie there in my jumpsuit and socks, in the thick shag carpeting in the lounge room. It all felt very good. Shan joined us. The 3 of us danced together. It made me very horny. I said, "I never want to leave Shan's silo." Shan smiled and danced between Robbie and me. We were in Eden. Eden needed us. All roads crossed on our dance floor. The Dragon Parade. We danced and danced. The tape played. We were sweaty and hypnotized, and we lost ourselves as the music fell all around, washing over us. I said, "I love you, Shan. I love you, Robbie." What was I going to do? Shan and Robbie smiled at me. Shan combed her fingers through my wet hair. Robbie touched my hand with his. We danced and danced. And while I danced with Robbie and Shan below the ground, things happened in the world above. Ingrid, my golden retriever that could not bark, was exhausted from being outside and watching me mow the lawn and scoop up dog shit all day. She was curled up beneath my desk, asleep and content, waiting for me to come home. Ah Wong Sing and Connie Breeze were lying naked together in bed. They had sex 3 times in 1 hour. Ah Wong Sing was a real dynamo for such a quiet guy. The pancake house cook and Connie Breeze smoked a marijuana cigarette that Ah Wong Sing had rolled before coming over to the Del Vista Arms. They also used up the last of the condoms Connie Breeze had found on the floor of Robbie's bedroom. The family from Minnesota who'd come through Ealing the previous Saturday on their serial killer road trip were heading back home to Minneapolis. They bought a stand cream pizza to go and had a picnic on the benches at Amelia Jenks Bloomer Park. It was not a good idea. Nobody in Ealing, Iowa ever went to Amelia Jenks Bloomer Park. The parks were inexplicably like that, unused, as though there is some unspoken recognition that there might be a sort of toxic pall hanging over them. In fact, Amelia Jenks Bloomer Park was built on the site of an old chemical milling and etching plant. The tanks there had corrupted, and poisonous metals from them seeped into the ground. Swallowing water from the drinking fountains at Amelia Jenks Bloomer Park was just a little safer than sucking on the nozzle of unleaded premium at the Arco on Kimber Drive. Nobody knew anything about that. The twin boys drank and drank from the fountains at Amelia Jenks Bloomer Park in Ealing, Iowa. They filled squirt guns again and again with Amelia Jenks Bloomer Park's drinking water. It did not matter. The family sat and looked over their memories in their guidebook. Before Amelia Jenks Bloomer Park was an abandoned park, United Chem Etch Incorporated's parking lot occupied the exact spot where the picnic tables were located. In 1969, the decapitated head of an adult white male had been discovered in that parking lot. It was a perfect place to have a family picnic. The father remarked how fresh the sausage meat was on the stand-pane pizza they had bought. The Hoover boys, at least the bugs that hatched from the Hoover boys, Tyler, Demon, and Roger, scampered with clicking mechanical jerkiness across the Little League field adjacent to the picnic area. They audibly buzzed with horniness and hunger. One of the Timon boys saw them. He said, "Look, a dragon parade." It was not a dragon parade. Mantises are very quick. It's not that the bugs that hatched from the Hoover boys and the other victims of contained MI plague strain 412E were precisely mantises, but they were close enough in physiology that with their triangular heads and viciously barbed, tri-segmented, striking arms, they also stood 6 feet tall. In battle, a 6-foot-tall praying mantis could easily destroy a 6-foot-tall grizzly bear. They were like grizzly bears with steel plating and lightning-fast arms studded with row upon row of shark's teeth. The bugs that hatched from the victims of contained MI plague strain 412E liked to snatch their prey up by the head and then commence eating their thrashing victims straight down to their shoes. The dragon parade made a bloody mess at Amelia Jenks Bloomer Park. They were very quick. They even ate what was left of the tourist family stand-preen pizza before scurrying off to look for more food, and also for Eileen Pope, who they could hear and smell and wanted to fuck. And while we danced and danced, my mother swallowed another of her little blue kayaks. She'd gone back to the hotel with my father. My father was leaving a voicemail message on my cell phone at exactly the same moment that Shan and Robbie danced with me. The message was this: "Hey, Austin. We've been sitting with Eric, and he looks good, real good. He's gonna be fine, son. So there's no need to worry about your big brother. He's a hero. Call me and let me know how things are going at school. I hope you're eating okay and not just cup of noodles and shit like that. And don't forget to let Ingrid out. I love you, son." Happy hour was beginning at the Tally-Ho. Thursdays were good days there for men to meet new men who were daring enough to finally try their luck at the Tally-Ho. Will Wallace was drinking a beer at the bar while Shan ran her fingers through my hair and Robbie brushed my sweaty hand softly with his. Will Wallace was not homosexual. The Tally-Ho sold beers for 70 cents per glass during Thursday happy hours. Will Wallace also enjoyed the attention he got from men who showed up at Waterloo, Iowa's one and only gay bar, for the first time. Will Wallace had no idea he was spending his last evening on Earth in a bar for homosexual men. At the same time Will Wallace was finishing his second glass of beer at the Tally-Ho, Mr. Dwayne Coventry, our chemistry teacher at Curtis Crane Lutheran Academy, was tapping on the front door at Tipsy Cricket Liquors. He needed a bottle of whiskey. Dwayne was single and he drank a lot. Nobody opened the door for him. So he got back into his car and drove to the High V, where Connie Zerba worked as a bookkeeper. At the High V, Dwayne Coventry purchased 2 boxes of antihistamine tablets for his allergies. He did not have allergies. The chemistry teacher from Curtis Crane Lutheran Academy was a real dynamo when it came to cooking methamphetamine in his kitchen. Dwayne Coventry was very lonely. He should have tried hanging out at the Tally-Ho. Hungry Jack, whose real name was Charles R. Hufford, was now a massive green bug that looked like a praying mantis. And Travis Pope, who was also a massive green bug that looked like a praying mantis, were back in the alley at Grasshopper Jungle. They were fighting over mating privileges with Travis's wife, Eileen Pope, who was also a massive green bug that looked like a praying mantis. It didn't matter. Travis had already inseminated her a dozen times that day, and now it was more hungry than horny. There was plenty of Eileen Pope to go around. Eileen Pope was about to become queen of a new world. Once her 6 suitors got to her, they would collectively fertilize millions of eggs inside Eileen Pope's burgeoning abdomen. It would take her several days to produce and hide her egg mass, but then, in a matter of hours, there would be more hatchlings from those first 7 victims of the contained MI plague strain 412E than there were people in the entire state of Iowa. The world would have just about 7 days before the bugs started taking over. The bugs only wanted 2 things. So Travis Pope submitted to Hungry Jack and scuttled away down the alley behind Ealing Mall. Travis Pope hunted for somewhere to eat. Hungry Jack joined himself to Eileen Pope as she clamped 4 of her arms onto the dirty convertible sofa in Grasshopper Jungle and buzzed with contented, fizzling coos like a short-circuiting wall socket. We danced until the entire tape played through, and flapped its disconnected end over and over around the receiving spool in an unending counterclockwise loop. Shannon, Robbie, and I were soaked with sweat. The 3 of us collapsed into the thick shack carpeting, panting and staring up at the high ceiling overhead. Shan said, "Let's try to find something besides shower water to drink." I said, "I want to go piss in my great-great-grandfather's urinal." "So do I," said Robbie. History often loops around into complete circles. The spool of tape spun and spun. Okay. Good night, love.